Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Prize Podcast where we talk about how sports and the Christian worldview intersect one another. I'm Kyle Hunsinger. It's good to have you back on the show. I'm glad to be back again for another week of episodes. If you've noticed on your podcast feed, all the episodes have been recorded three at a time now because I'm getting towards the end of the week, and this is the time that I have. It's near the end of the week to do this. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I want to talk about debt free today. And I'm not just talking about Dave Ramsey debt free tactics. I'm talking about being truly debt free when it comes to your spiritual life. One of the ways that I really wanted to hone in on this was just getting to see the freedom of one of the athletes that won a gold medal in the women's 400 hurdles. I don't want to butcher her name. Her name is Sydney McLaughlin Levron. If that's how you pronounce it. But she did a fantastic job. She won the gold medal. We are, of course, done with the Olympics right now, which is crazy because it seemed like it lasts forever. But then on the other hand, it went like this. And what was really cool about her was that she did so well, but she knew who to give credit to when it came to her story. If you listen to her and you listen to all the things that she talks about in her story when it comes to her testimony and different things like that, she talks about her relationship with the Lord, which I find very cool. Anytime that you can get an athlete that can give credit to God, but most importantly, being specific of who their God is, that's the most important thing is that they are specific. And she is very specific in her faith of talking about her faith in Jesus Christ. In fact, just a couple of items that I wrote down that she said. Number one, that Jesus has given her a platform, that she recognizes that it was not based on her own work, that God has given her work to do and has used her as workmanship, as his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. In addition to that, she said it's been a gift to be able to compete in the Olympics and do what she's been able to do. What was really cool was seeing her husband, who was a former Virginia football player. He was able to also celebrate with her and celebrate her with that encouragement. And then last but not least, I love this image of her saying that she was just a channel or vessel. Vessel was the word that she used. And when you're in Christ and when it comes to anything you do in a work, you always recognize that you are only the vessel when it comes to God's plans. Well, this week, that's what I really want to hone in on with her is that this quote that she brought up, freedom that is through me, he will get the praise. That is what she was referencing to, is that she has this unbelievable freedom to know that no matter what happens, as she competes, the Lord is going to be the one to get the praise. For us, we have to have that same mindset when it comes to our relationship, Lord, no matter what our work is. If you're a student, it may be your schoolwork, whether that be your middle school, high school student, kid, whatever that may be, college student. When it comes to being an adult, it's your work ethic, it's all these different things that take place that God has gifted you with. If you're retired, it doesn't matter. You've been given a job. I talked about that last week. You've been given a job and a placement of work to be able to do what you've been called to do. And you were only a vessel or channel to be able to do that. Well, Moses did not realize that when he was walking through the story of the Exodus. At first, he says, "Here I am," when he encounters the Lord in the burning bush. He kind of does what God told him to do. He goes to Pharaoh in chapter 5, which is what I'm studying this week. And as he's going to Pharaoh, he tells him, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh gives him the stiff arm. He says, "Nope, you're not going anywhere. In fact, I'm going to make it even harder for you. I'm going to make the barriers, and I'm going to talk about that later in another podcast. I'm going to prevent you, and I'm going to prevent your people from going, so much so that I'm going to prevent you with a lack of rest," which I find very interesting because God has always been about rest. If you look through the beginning of the book of Genesis, what does he do? He provides rest by himself obeying that command to rest. Now, did God need to rest? No, he did not need rest. But he decides in that moment to rest, to emulate a pattern for us, which we need it. We need the rest. And ultimately, that rest comes through Jesus Christ. Because you remember when Jesus is talking about talking to all the religious leaders and talking to people, it says, come to me, all you who are heavy laden, I will provide you rest. Well, our ultimate rest in the resurrection of Jesus. And that's really where it's pointing forth in redemption and salvation history. Here's the key thing that I want you to take away from this week's episode is that anything that you do, no matter what the credit be, you can cry out to God and knowing that he deserves alone the credit and celebration. Now, when you think of cry out, you think of suffering, and we're going to talk about that in another episode. But in this situation, we know that God's going to get the credit. He's going to get the credit no matter what. Even if you fail, God gets the credit. Not in a way to where you can say, oh, God, why did you make me fall, blah, blah, blah. No, go to God. Go to God when you fall. Go to God when you're going through your struggles. But the biggest thing for us that we have to understand, and something I'm even learning still, is that even in failures, struggles, even in the barriers or the problems that I deem are problems in my life, God's still using it in his sovereign plan to complete his purposes. In fact, it was in those right moments when Moses realized his failure to where the Israelites are like, you basically put a knife in front of our throats to where Pharaoh is going to kill us. You've enforced this. You've made it to where we're going to have harder labor upon us. And then Moses goes to God and says, why did you allow this to happen? The great thing is he goes to God. That's an awesome thing. And we have those questions where maybe there is a issue of hope where we're like, okay, what do we do, God? I thought you said this was going to work. Sometimes obedience doesn't always lead to success. For Sydney McLaughlin, it did. Led to her success. For another person who would lead to their success is a guy named Randy Gashir, or Gradishar. I guess that's how you pronounce his name. He's a Hall of Fame a Hall of Fame football player for the Denver Broncos. And he was able to share the gospel through receiving a Hall of Fame message. But then he was able to give the real message, saying, hey, the reason why I'm doing this is because the Lord's given me this gift, and he gave me this gift. Now I'm giving this back to him because it's a gift. It's such a gift. And the biggest gift of it all is Christ has redeemed us. He redeemed us, and he's made us debt-free. Now, when you think of redemption, you probably think of the term kinsman redeemer, which you see in the Old Testament, of someone within the family who is free, who's able to pay for land or pay for or buy off a piece of land that would ultimately be left vacant, but they're able to take that land, take a hold of it so that the family name can continue, so that that family name would not run out. They'd be a kinsman redeemer. And, God is acting as a redeemer, the redeemer, over God's people in Israel by delivering them. He says, I'm going to rescue you. I will redeem you. God redeems us through Jesus because Jesus pays the debt. Jesus has this freedom because he's God, fully man. But yet, he took the debt of our sin and made us debt free. And that's good news that we can share. And that's good news today that we can give credit to the Lord. So I hope you do that today. Thank you for joining in on another episode of the Prize Podcast, where we talk about how sports and the Christian worldview intersect one another. If you would like to email me, you can email me, pursuetheprize@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter, or follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at KMoneyDH. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Hope you have a great evening or great afternoon or great morning, and we'll see you later for another episode of the Prize Podcast.